It's Wednesday, May 6th. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. There's growing criticism of money for a dairy following a shutdown notice. Questions about the effectiveness of a late-night emergency police alert.
Rain moves across the region on Thursday. A return to a mix of sun and cloud behind for Friday.
Live from our Maritime's News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening. We begin with the continuing fallout from the decision by dairy giant Agropur to shut down its Sussex plant and the government's role in offering financial aid. Workers at the facility are speaking out. CTV's Avery McRae leads us off from Sussex.
It was quite a blow to everyone.
Shane Smith has worked at Agropur's Sussex area facility for nearly 24 years. Never in his wildest dreams did the shop steward see a closure of the dairy plant by the end of 2028 that employs 60 people in the community.
Morale's very low. You can see it, you can feel it just when you talk to any of the other members.
For the first time since the news broke, plant employees are meeting with officials from their union in hopes of learning what comes next.
We have to find ways and means to sit with our government and come up with a plan for this workplace, because if our government is able to invest in one workplace, I am certain that we can talk about investment in another.
Both Murray and Smith admit they didn't know the plant's future was in jeopardy when the province gave the company $2.4 million to modernize its Miramichi location. The fact the province says they weren't aware of the possible closure of the Sussex site has left a sour taste for workers.
That's ridiculous. I don't even know how that would have happened. I have no clue how that would have happened, how they would have missed that.
Our rural communities really do rely on these good-paying jobs, and just transitioning work elsewhere, uprooting families, and disrupting sort of what has been created here in Sussex is not always the answer.
When asked how the facility was operating prior to the news, Smith says everything was going well. The net loss of jobs will be 45 from the pending plant closure, with 15 positions to open in Miramichi as a result of those plant upgrades. Officials here say as of now, they have not had any indications those jobs will be filled by current employees from Dairytown. Avery McRae, CTV News, Sussex, New Brunswick.
Now, pressure is being ratcheted up on the Susan Holt Liberals for offering Agropur millions before the news of that Sussex closure was announced. As CTV's Nick Moore reports, the company shared that information with the previous government years ago.
Oral questions.
What the provincial government knew about Agropur's plans to shut down its Sussex area plant and when is a $2.4 million question that is not going away in the legislature.
If you didn't know their intentions, why did you give them the money? If you did know their intentions, why did you give them the money?
$2.4 million in government funding was announced in February to help expand the Agropur plant in Miramichi, just a few weeks before the company confirmed it would be shutting down its Sussex area plant, putting 60 people out of a job. Progressive Conservative MLA Margaret Johnson was the Minister of Agriculture in the Blaine Higgs government and says she had conversations with Agropur about 3 years ago. Johnson says the company mentioned at that time the idea about shutting down the Sussex area plant.
I said, well, I am hopeful, my new meme for the day, hopeful that you can rejig. That's the colloquialism I used. I said, I think you need to really, in a perfect world, I want the business to stay in New Brunswick. We want it to be here and support local people.
The previous government's response to that information was to hope for a rejig. Madam Speaker, this government has acted.
Opportunities NB Minister Luke Randall answered all but one of the questions about Agropur in the legislature today. Premier Susan Holt did stand to respond to criticism from the official opposition that her cabinet ministers were answering the tough questions and not her.
I know that they're used to their previous leader shutting them down, not listening to them, and not allowing them to speak on behalf of the files or do any work because he micromanaged every single one of their files.
The PC opposition continues to call for the provincial government to make its Agropur agreement public, but there's been no indication from the provincial government that will happen. Nick Moore, CTV News, Fredericton.
Another college in our region has announced cuts. Nova Scotia Community College is eliminating 91 positions at its campuses. In a release, the college says half of the job cuts come from vacancies and buyout packages, but 45 people were laid off, most working within the college's central office. The reductions are as a result of a $15 million budgetary shortfall, including a nearly $9.5 million cut in provincial funding. A series of emergency alerts in a wide area around Halifax last night were intended to notify people of a police action in a rural area, but it ended up causing confusion and creating anxiety. CTV's Hafsa Arif reports.
In this Gatesbrook community, houses are close together, with neighbors just steps away. And while it's usually extremely quiet, last night phones lit up with 3 emergency alerts, warning of a man in distress carrying a machete.
I was very nervous when I first heard about the news and stuff, but then when I saw the email, the alert itself, I knew there was going to be confusion right away of which community it really was in.
With the confusion following the first alert, a second was sent out.
It was realized that in the community of Gatesbrook, there's Petapeswick Road, which is where the incident occurred, but there was confusion with the initial alert that it was in Musquodoboit Harbour.
But as the investigation continued, the situation began to shift.
So as officers were on scene, they continued to collect information and complete a continuous risk assessment. And it was determined that the initial information provided to police was not credible.
A third alert was then issued, telling residents they no longer needed to shelter in place.
Some of the community members are still wondering, is the person still at large? The person is still a person of interest for the police.
By this afternoon, a police cruiser was back in the neighborhood. Officers say there's no evidence to support criminal charges at this time.
We have to assess that information. At the initial report, we had to take what was given to us and ensure that the community was safe. So it's quite alarming when you get a report of a person with a machete.
Todd, compared to late last night, things are pretty quiet here today. Gatesbrook is about 30 kilometers east of the city. Investigators say they're continuing their efforts to find the man who they've identified. Todd?
CTV's Hafsa Arif reporting tonight. Thank you for that, Hafsa. Today marks 6 years since Dylan Ehler, a little boy, went missing in the Truro area. The 3-year-old disappeared from his grandmother's home in May of 2020. The only thing searchers found were his boots. Today, Truro police released an updated sketch of how the little boy might look. It was constructed by the Ontario Provincial Police. Investigators believe Dylan fell into a stream and was swept away. Police told CTV News today there is no evidence ever in the period of 6 years to suggest foul play. It remains a missing persons investigation. And you can see that new sketch and how Dylan Ehler may have aged, including more reporting on the investigation at our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Here's a look right now at the Armdale Roundabout in Halifax, where it's currently 15 degrees. The traffic beginning to back up there as the rush hour continues. Everybody wants to get home, Kaylin Mitchell, to enjoy a bit of sunshine that remains, although those cars might want to be careful to be not blown off the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a very windy day across a good portion of the Maritime. Sun did break through for some areas, including parts of Nova Scotia. Prince Edward Island remained mostly cloudy in New Brunswick, and of course rain developing in northern and western areas of that province. And that rain will continue to develop across New Brunswick as we head through this evening and tonight. This is with the weather front moving in from the west, a couple low pressure centers within it as well. That rain is going to continue to spread across the Maritimes as we make our way into Thursday morning. And overall rainfall amounts for this weather system, you know, it's another good soaking for a good portion of the region. About good 10 to 30 millimeters expected for most of the Maritimes from this one, with the potential for some higher amounts, at least locally, for a couple of areas, and that includes the northwest New Brunswick. You can see some of the yellows showing up there. And remember, there's some special weather statements in effect saying that some overall rainfall totals could approach 40 millimeters. And a fresh round of some statements that have been issued for some eastern areas of Nova Scotia, where during the day for tomorrow, there may be a couple of downpours located within the rain that could bump up a amounts, at least locally. So there's statements in effect for the northwest of New Brunswick. We also have some special weather statements now for eastern Halifax County, Guysborough County, and across Cape Breton. Potential for some rainfall totals of 40 to 60 millimeters for tomorrow. Just as a heads up that it looks like it's going to be a pretty rainy and gusty start to the day for a good portion of Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and a risk of some of those downpours coming through during the morning hours. So be careful about reduced visibility on the roads and maybe some hydroplaning conditions. One wind warning out for that weather system, and that's for tomorrow for northern Inverness County in Cape Breton. Because of the topography of the Cape Breton Highlands, some of those gusts, Todd, they can get some enhancement coming down the other side there. So peak gusts up to around 90 kilometers per hour. I'll have more in the forecast, of course, coming up a little bit later on.
Okay, we'll see you in about 15 minutes for that. Thank you. It's not the United Nations, but nearly 50 ambassadors and diplomats from around the globe are in Halifax as part of a 3-day economic forum. Organizers say it's one of the largest gatherings of its kind ever hosted in Canada. CTV's Jesse Thomas tells us more on what they're discussing.
They arrived at the Nova Scotia legislature by bus and were welcomed inside by the House Speaker and Deputy Premier. 46 ambassadors from countries across Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America, all here to focus on expanding trade and economic opportunities.
Ambassadors based in Ottawa, but Canada is not just Ottawa, so we are quite keen whenever we have the opportunity to travel and to meet the provinces, to understand provinces, and to see also possible opportunities to cooperate more.
With global markets rattled by war, supply chain disruptions, and strained trade relations, Nova Scotia and Canada is pitching itself as a stable strategic partner, especially around key interests like green energy, critical minerals, and technology.
Interested to see the possibilities for educational cooperation, research cooperation. Canada has worked and has really developed its R&D capabilities, and would like to explore and to see where we can actually see potential areas of cooperation.
Notably absent is the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Global Affairs Canada says invitations went out to all ambassadors to Canada. Still, the U.S. remains Canada's largest and most important trading partner, but tariffs and other threats have forced Canada to look outside of North America and build relationships elsewhere.
Of course, we are looking, as the EU, looking for reliable partners, predictable partners, and Canada is, of course, one of those. So we want to deepen our cooperation, to deepen our ties between the European Union and Canada.
Over the next 2 days, the group of ambassadors will meet with industry and Mi'kmaq leaders and tour key sites, showcasing the best Nova Scotia has to offer. Jesse Thomas, CTV News, Halifax.
The region's police watchdog is now investigating a collision between Halifax Regional Police and a cyclist. Police were chasing a male robbery suspect who was on a bicycle following a theft at a Halifax grocery store last month. A police cruiser collided with the cyclist and then a power pole. The suspect and one officer were taken to hospital. The cyclist has a fracture and has been charged with theft and possession of stolen property. The Serious Incident Response Team is now investigating that incident. An anti-crime coalition has released the results of a survey it sent to candidates running for office in the Moncton area. And CTV's Derek Haggett tells us the group is not happy with the results.
The Enough is Enough coalition says 57% of candidates from Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe did not respond to their recent survey on public safety.
It's disappointing that folks didn't take the time to explain what their position are, so that when we vote, we can, vote with confidence that somebody's going to step up and try and address this.
In Moncton, 8 candidates did not respond, including Sean Crossman and Jeffrey McCluskey, who are running for mayor. In a news release, the coalition says Crossman has made public safety a centerpiece of his campaign. Voters must ask a simple question. If he won't answer for his position before the election, what reason is there to believe he will after?
I don't really appreciate that statement, knowing that I've tried to do my best to bring them to City Council, to bring them before the public, and to make sure that they get their time. What I'm really concerned about is who wrote that statement and why they wrote it that way.
Crossman says he didn't get his survey submitted in time, and so too did other candidates, like Brian Butler, who says it slipped through the cracks. But Butler thinks candidates that have never been on council before probably should have filled it out.
I think they should, but I think, you know, I've spoken enough to enough is enough, and certainly my time on council, I've shown where I stand on, especially on crime.
Gillespie says the survey was sent a couple of weeks ago and only took a few minutes to complete.
You know, we tried to send it out in a manner that was, you know, easy to access. It was only a 6-minute survey.
I spoke with one candidate today who says he's been swamped with emails and survey requests since the campaign began. He apologized, saying he simply missed it, and he's human, but it wasn't done on purpose. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
To the ongoing strike now by nursing home workers in Nova Scotia. After weeks, both sides seem to be digging in. The province wants a vote on its latest offer, while the union insists it's not good enough. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness has more on the union's latest move.
Well into their 4th week on the picket line, long-term care workers say their resolve remains strong, but frustrations are growing.
People are stressed, but we're getting through it. We didn't think we'd be out this long. We thought at least the government would have called us back by now. So, but we're going to stay out as long as we can.
CUPE National President Mark Hancock came to Nova Scotia to visit picket lines, boost morale, and perhaps pressure the province back to the table.
We're not hearing a word from them, especially the Premier, and it's quite frankly, it's disgusting. It's shameful that the folks that are in residences like this one here all across the province are not getting the services that they deserve.
Seniors and long-term care Minister Barbara Adams says talks can resume once CUPE takes the latest offer to its members.
That is the next step. And, you know, we've heard from employees that some of them still don't know what the offer is.
Adams says the contract is the same deal accepted by nearly 28,000 other healthcare staff.
It's a competitive offer. It's 12 to 24% pay raise, plus a 70% increase in the shift premium, a defined pension benefit for those who didn't have it, and it's a retroactive pay back to 2023 when the original deal expired.
Picket lines went up April 13th. Striking workers include continuing care assistants, licensed practical nurses, housekeeping staff, and physiotherapists. And Todd, workers from 30 of the 52 nursing homes represented by CUPE are on the picket line. Melville Lodge here in Halifax and Shoreham Village in Chester will be joining them later this week. Todd.
That's our Jonathan McGuinness reporting from the picket line in Halifax. Well, they did it. Defending Q League champs, the Moncton Wildcats are heading back to the finals to defend their title.
Not getting up really slow. In front to Smith, they score! From Newfront, Dave Smith! Wildcats 6, Armada 2.
This was not a nail-biter last night. The Cats defeated the Armada in Game 7 last night, 6-2. In front of a home crowd of 7,500 fans at the Avenir Centre. Moncton scored 3 third-period goals to clinch the series in the deciding game. The Wildcats now face Chicoutimi in the league championship. Game 1, Friday night at the Avenir Centre. And go Cats go. Still ahead, we'll look back at the life and legacy of media mogul Ted Turner, who died today. But next, the latest in the war in the Middle East.
The Trump administration is pushing for a peace deal with Iran, but it's unclear where exactly those talks stand. I'm Christiane Cordero in Washington to break down the latest. Coming up.
This is your Campfire Conditions Report, valid until 2 p.m. on May 7th, brought to you by Pine Acres RV, where customers become friends. Most of New Brunswick is restricted to the hours of 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., exceptions being some of the northern and westernmost counties, as well as Charlotte County and St. John County. For the province of Nova Scotia, Category 1 burning and campfires are restricted to the hours of around 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. And for the province of Prince Edward Island, campfires are currently permitted, but Category 1 domestic brush burning is currently not allowed in the province. Remember, as well as checking in on provincial restrictions, check in on municipal restrictions and bylaws. Keep your fires small and under control and never leave a fire unattended.
The Trump administration insists it's engaged in negotiations to end the war in Iran, but Iranian officials don't appear to be as optimistic. The potential for peace talks come as U.S. officials say the military has entered a new phase, shifting to a more defensive posture. ABC's Christian Cordero with the latest from Washington.
Today, as the war with Iran drags on, the Trump administration with a new push for a peace deal. The president today renewed his threat that bombing would start again if Iran doesn't, quote, agree to give what has been agreed to.
And we have to get what we have to get. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal.
The administration hasn't said what's in its latest proposal, but President Trump is reiterating his demand, insisting Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But a spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry told its state TV the issue of nuclear weapons is not currently under discussion. It has not issued an official response to the U.S. proposal. Iran's top negotiator is accusing the U.S. of trying to force Iran to surrender, adding messages are being exchanged through the Pakistani mediators, but they have not issued a response yet to the U.S. proposal.
Both sides have a really, I think, big incentive to have it work. The question is, can they concede on certain main points? Because part of negotiations is concessions.
The Strait of Hormuz, meanwhile, remains effectively closed. Iran says it will start allowing some traffic to move through with conditions, but roughly 1,500 ships still remain stalled in the Persian Gulf. The U.S. has also asserted control in the strait through a naval blockade targeting Iran's economy. U.S. Central Command says American forces fired on and disabled an Iranian-flagged oil tanker near the Strait of Hormuz this morning, alleging the crew didn't comply with repeated warnings. The standoff in the Strait of Hormuz has led to a spike in energy prices worldwide. The average cost of a gallon of regular gas here in the U.S. is now over $4.50 a gallon, according to Gas Buddy. Christian Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Ted Turner is being remembered as an original, an environmentalist, and a maverick who took big risks and found big successes with CNN and his other ventures. He died today at 87. NBC's Chris Clackham looks at his life and career.
You bet your bippy.
Media mogul Ted Turner had his own way to describe his life.
An adventure. I think I've led an adventurer's life, and that's really what I wanted to do.
And that he did. Born Robert Edward Turner III in 1938, he revolutionized television by creating CNN and became a brash billionaire who lived a life taking risk, most of which paid off.
My father's advice to me was, do not set goals that are achievable during your lifetime. Set goals that are too high to achieve.
After dropping out of Brown University, Turner followed his father into the billboard advertising business, taking over the company after his father's suicide. Soon he expanded into television and radio, purchasing a small independent TV station in Atlanta that aired old movies and syndicated programs, then using satellite to beam a signal to cable systems and audiences nationwide.
For the next hour, I hope you'll join me.
He called it the TBS Superstation. It also broadcast games of sports teams he had later purchased: the Atlanta Braves, Atlanta Hawks, and the NHL Thrashers. And to demonstrate his own sporting ability, he won the America's Cup, earning the nickname Captain Courageous. But Turner's greatest innovation came in 1980, when he launched the cable news network, bringing 24-hour news to millions of viewers worldwide. By the mid-90s, Turner merged his empire with Time Warner, a $7.5 billion deal that made him a billionaire as well as board chairman, which he gave up a few years later. By 2001, he had given up on his 10-year marriage to actress Jane Fonda.
I love this world of ours.
But a passionate environmentalist and philanthropist, Ted Turner also gave back, once donating $1 billion to the UN for humanitarian efforts worldwide. Chris Clackham, NBC News.
Ted Turner is survived by his 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. Up next, Caleb Mitchell has big rain moving into the region for some of us. Details are in the full maritime forecast after this. Nice shot of Bedeck, Cape Breton, of course. 15 degrees right now with mainly, let's call it mainly blue skies. Yeah, it's nice to see that. As always, or as usual, when we have a weather system moving in from the west, Cape Breton's going to be last into the rain, but they'll also be last out of it. They can probably expect the rain to kind of develop through the day tomorrow, but then linger into Thursday night before it clears away before early Friday morning. That's the coming rain. We're going to talk about rain that has come and gone in April in particular, and it provided, some relief for parts of New Brunswick and PEI? Yeah, I mean, we always like to see rain in the springtime, of course, right? It's got many benefits for the region, but especially when there were parts of the Maritimes that were a little bit lower when it came to winter precipitation. And this year, this past winter season, that was areas of New Brunswick and areas of Prince Edward Island. So they managed to make up a little bit of that ground, of that winter deficit, through the month of April. Taking a look at April rainfall reports here compared to the average for that month, and for a good portion of New Brunswick as well as Prince Edward Island, April rain was near to above the averages, in some cases a fair bit above average. For Nova Scotia, it was a little bit closer to the average for western parts of the province, and then a fair bit lower, actually, for eastern areas of Nova Scotia, including parts of Cape Breton, where Sydney only finished about 40% of the typical amount of rain or total precipitation they get for the month of April. Now, we've had a couple of wet weather systems to start off this month. We've got one that's making its way in for tonight, and that rain is going to continue to develop across New Brunswick as we move through this evening. And then during the overnight hours, arrives for Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. As we talked about earlier, it's likely to be a pretty rainy and foggy start to the day for a good portion of the region, especially Prince Edward Island, northern, western areas of Nova Scotia. Within that rain, there is a risk of some downpours. So certainly for the morning commutes in some areas, there could be some reduced visibility and obviously wet road conditions. Moving into the afternoon, the rain will have cleared New Brunswick. Actually, most of the rain for New Brunswick wraps up early tomorrow morning, but it is followed by some scattered showers developing for the afternoon hours. So there'll be a few showers drifting through parts of New Brunswick Thursday afternoon. For Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia for Thursday afternoon, the rain shifts into eastern areas, and then it slowly begins to clear the Maritime region as we head into Thursday evening and Thursday night, with Cape Breton, as I mentioned, last out of that rain. They should be clear of that by early Friday morning. Now, winds in the forecast out there for a good portion of the region this evening and tonight are still quite gusty out of the south and southwest. Lighter in some northern and western areas of New Brunswick where that front is approaching. In the forecast for tomorrow, it's still going to be windy to begin the day, Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia, but there should be some improvement when it comes to the wind speeds Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening as the front goes by and the wind begins to change direction to become west and northwest. Most of the low temperatures tonight in the region will be around the high single digits and the low teens. High temperatures in the forecast for tomorrow in the north of New Brunswick, up between 12 and 16 degrees. There'll be some sunny breaks, but also a few showers moving through. Central and southern areas of New Brunswick tomorrow with high temperatures of 14 to 16 degrees. Rain ends early in the morning, but after that, in the afternoon, even with a mix of sun and cloud, there'll be a chance of a few showers. Prince Edward Island for tomorrow, pretty rainy and windy morning. That rain gradually clearing towards the east, afternoon into evening. High temperatures 10 to 14 degrees. Rain, drizzle, fog, gusty winds for eastern areas of Nova Scotia for tomorrow with high temperatures mostly 10 to 15. Pretty rainy and windy morning for northern and central parts of the province, including in Halifax County and the southwest of Nova Scotia as well. Rainy and windy morning, but then some improved conditions in the afternoon. Maybe the sun breaks through a little bit and those gusty winds begin to ease. Taking a look at the extended forecast for New Brunswick, a couple of spotty showers on Friday for the province, and a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday. Showers in the forecast for Sunday. Rain still possible at the start of next week, and that's followed by a mix of sun and cloud Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures fairly seasonable all the way through that stretch of days. For Nova Scotia in the forecast, some isolated showers with a mix of sun and cloud on Friday. Saturday, a mix of sun and cloud. Showers in the forecast for Sunday. Rain possible on Monday of next week, and then clearing to a mix of sun and cloud Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. And for Prince Edward Island in the outlook, coming up on Friday, a mix of sun and cloud, some isolated showers, a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday with highs near 14 degrees. 12 on Sunday with showers in the forecast. Rain possible on Monday, and then a mix of sun and cloud Tuesday into Wednesday of next week. Todd. All right, thank you, Callum. We'll see you towards the end of the show. Next, we will speak with a former energy minister in the Maritimes who writes the Atlantic provinces had better find a way to work together on power projects. We'll hear from him next.
Vegas. We're back at it tomorrow. Virgin Radio's 5K a day starting at 7 a.m. Get those keywords for your chance to win $5,000 daily.
And around 7:30 is your shot at the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival.
Welcome back. A new article calls for East Coast provinces to generate power, generate revenue, and bolster the economy and energy security. The article was written by Mike Holland, former New Brunswick Energy Minister and Minister of Natural Resources. He joins us from Moncton. He's currently Atlantic VP for Sussex Strategy. Nice to see you, Mr. Holland.
Good to see you, Todd. Pleasure to be here.
Your article urges the Atlantic provinces to, well, get their act together and start collaborating to become a leader in the energy sector, that each province has something to contribute?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very diverse makeup of opportunity that we have here in Atlantic Canada. In the article, I talked about differing and complementary energy strategies. Energy strategies, energy security is something that the country is looking to develop in a significant way. And in this region here, we have the opportunity, in my opinion, to come together, have a conversation about the mutual benefit of collaborating on these energy projects, whether it be small or large. At the end of the day, the Atlantic region makes up the eastern portion of the country, and coming together on those projects could be significant.
What you're proposing sounds pretty similar to the just released third-party report, which urges NB Power, the province of New Brunswick, to find ways to work with the neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I served as the energy minister for New Brunswick, and in that role, any minister that serves a particular province is going to be fiercely focused on that jurisdiction. I had the opportunity once I left, and still remained working in sectors that touched on energy, to go up to 30,000 feet and then see in the region other projects, other areas, and you know, it naturally looks like there's synergies that could be there. And so I'm encouraging that on all fronts. I'm not presupposing which projects are, you know, no-goes, but the concept or the philosophy of let's all work together on that and share our strengths could have an impact, and I think that it should be followed through.
Are those conversations taking place? Doesn't feel like there's a lot of that collaborative spirit between the Maritime provinces.
Well, it's fair to say
at the government level, I should say, Mike.
At the government level, I mean, we're not sitting at the table where, you know, the Atlantic premiers meet on a regular basis. There's a council of Atlantic premiers. I'm quite confident that they do meet and discuss Atlantic provincial issues. You know, the day-to-day business is done within usually the boundaries of a province. So I think that when it comes to energy, particularly energy, 2018, when I became the minister, wasn't talked about a whole lot. But globally, energy and its security became a household word in those recent years. So now more than ever, above and beyond regular interactions, I think that there's a case to be made for a special call for these jurisdictions to sit down and specifically talk about energy collaboration.
What's the risk if they don't?
Well, the risk is that we don't have the maximum impact that we could have. As I had said in the article, each individual province or jurisdiction has its own benefits, has its own projects, and has its own return on investment for focusing exclusively on their own little piece of the world. It's the greater benefit when we rise up above and start looking to how we could share across the borders in our Atlantic provinces. When you start, you know, creating an economy of scale by combining, you know, supply chains. If you start looking how one province could potentially help backstop renewable energy with baseload power. Those collaborations, you know, the old saying, the sum is greater than the total of its parts. That's where that comes into play. So each province can benefit individually, but I believe that we're all stronger together.
Is the clock ticking on this? We've heard from New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, who have both suggested that, look, we're not generating enough power that we need to sustain our own needs. We know that Prince Edward Island is desperate for a second link from New Brunswick. You know, it sounds like we're hitting a point of urgency.
We are. I think that we are. And I think a big part of that, and something that would help move Atlantic Canadian projects individually and collectively ahead, would be energy literacy for citizens. as we start moving forward, one of the things I realized when I was the minister, and I was guilty of it myself when I was a citizen, is that I just expect to go over to a switch and turn it on and it works, by magic or whatever the case may be. As the minister, I learned and have now a greater understanding of what it takes to create that matrix and have it make sure that light comes on with increasing populations, with increasing loads, with increasing demands that are coming our way. So, whenever a utility or a province or political officials try to move forward with initiatives to create increased electrification, there's always questions from the public, which should be, and they should be answered. But I think that we should also embark upon a process of energy literacy to help folks understand, this is the reason why. It wasn't too long ago that New Brunswick was in a position where, when I was the minister, where there was one cold snap in 2023, where we came like that close to the lights not working. Yeah. So if we could create, a lot of times when you go out to try to create a problem that people don't know they have, it becomes difficult. So that's where literacy becomes part of an assist to help, and then that can clear the path with public support to have jurisdictions come together and work on these projects. It's an important conversation. We appreciate you offering your insight for us, and we'll be talking about it down the line, no doubt. Thanks, Mike Holland, for being with us. My pleasure, anytime. Okay. We'll take a time out. We'll be back with more of your show after this. In health headlines tonight, another province is following PEI's lead and is lowering its colorectal cancer screening age. CTV's Amanda Debison has the details in tonight's edition of The Lifeline.
New guidelines published online by Cancer Care Ontario says that province is lowering its colorectal cancer screening age from 50 to 45 starting July 1st. The new recommendation is in response to what Ontario Health calls a notable increase in younger people diagnosed with the disease. Prince Edward Island was the first province to lower its screening age in March. Cancer groups have been calling on all regions to make this change, citing evidence that shows people under 50 are 2 to 2.5 times more likely to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer than they were in previous generations. Energy drinks have been around for decades, but they've recently become more popular, especially with teenagers. Many of the drinks taste like candy, and they can contain a jolt of caffeine, which could do more harm than good.
They have flavors like Jolly Rancher flavor and sour gummy worms. It's so easy to just pop open a cold can and chug it.
Researchers found many drinks contain 2 to 3 times the daily caffeine limit recommended for teens, which is 100 milligrams. Too much caffeine has been linked to insomnia, anxiety, jitters, and heart-related symptoms, and teens may be especially vulnerable. Consumer Reports tested 23 popular energy drinks and shots. While most drinks came close to or matched their labels, some had up to 16% more caffeine than advertised. Experts say parents should check labels, track total caffeine from all sources, and pay attention to their teen's sleep. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Debison for The Lifeline.
A satellite built by Canadian students is now in space after a successful launch over the weekend. CTV Edmonton's Alicia Fieldberg met with some of the students.
And liftoff of Falcon 9.
As this SpaceX rocket launches, a group of University of Calgary students gathers to witness a satellite they built release into space.
It feels so surreal. Hitting all of our milestones has been really, really rewarding.
And it wasn't a school project, but an idea created by students.
Their project, their desire, their inspiration, and their motivation to be the people that launched Calgary's first student-built and designed satellite.
The satellite, roughly the size of a loaf of bread, is now orbiting Earth, communicating through the antenna at the Rothney Astrophysical Observatory.
This is where the real action is. It feels, without being able to communicate with it, you're basically just flying a brick. So being able to kind of contribute to getting that information and starting this new phase of the satellite is really exciting.
It's moving. Yeah. Through the next 3 years, the students will be working here, collecting data for research.
It's a lot of really exciting firsts for the team, and getting to see
all of the work kind of culminate at this stage is quite rewarding.
About 100 students, mostly undergraduates, have been involved since Calgary to Space started in 2020. And some are surprised when they add up all the free time they've spent working on it.
I'm going to throw 500 hours. Oh! Okay! Over 2,000 hours.
So it was really exciting to see such a project being undertaken by students and to be able to contribute to it.
The team hopes FrontierSat shows others what you can achieve when you set your sights high.
I hope people feel inspired, feel ready to kind of take on new opportunities.
Alicia Fieldberg, CTV News, Calgary.
With Aaron and Peter. Bike a day in May. So far, we've given away 6 bikes, 25 more to go.
Want to win? All you have to do is listen for the Bike Bell tomorrow between 8 and 9.
Well, a banner day on the markets. The Dow Jones ended the day up 612 points. The U.S. certainly feeling the effects of Canadians refusing to buy American liquor. BNN Bloomberg's Marella Fernandez with more.
The U.S. Distilled Spirits Council says exports fell almost 4% last year, and that's led to job losses in the industry. About 1,000 jobs were lost at American distilleries between September of 2024 and September of 2025. The council says spirit sales to Canada were down 63% in 2025. Some provinces pulled American products off shelves in response to Washington's tariffs. And now the EU is threatening to tariff liquor products from the U.S. this summer. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is down to 73.34. West Texas Intermediate down over $7 to 95.08. Western Canadian Select down over $3 to 80.87. And the TSX spiked 414 points today. Those are your business headlines. I'm Marella Fernandez.
All right, let's go to the weather deck. Kayla Mitchell outside with one more look.
Yeah, it's still blustery out here. I've got some cloud cover that's increasing as well. Remember, we do have some rain that's going to be slowly working its way across the entire Maritime region as we move through tonight and into the start of the day for tomorrow. Let's go to our viewer picture for tonight, though. This is a great one. This is coming in just before sunrise, and this is looking over the St. Mary's River. It was sent in by Mary Gallant. I want to thank Mary very much for sending this in. Mary from Glen Elg, Nova Scotia. And this might fit the perfect description of the crack of dawn. Glen Elg for tomorrow can expect rain and fog and gusty southwest winds, at least for the first part of the day. The high temperature near 12 degrees. Day planner for tomorrow, plan on a rainy and gusty and foggy morning for a good portion of the Maritime, especially Prince Edward Island, north and western areas of Nova Scotia. Keep that in mind for the morning commutes. Temperatures early in the morning, high single digits and low teens. In the afternoon, the band of rain shifts eastward. So by about the mid-afternoon hours, it's mostly in place around eastern areas of Nova Scotia and eastern Prince Edward Island. In behind it, there may be some sunny breaks, but there will also be some scattered showers. Most of the high temperatures tomorrow will be around the low to mid-teens. Todd.
All right, umbrellas in hand. Thank you. We will see you tomorrow night. And coming up here tomorrow night at 6, making a statement. In an age of non-stop information and social media use, why do governments seem to be holding back some details? That's the topic for Murphy's Logic. Steve has some thoughts on that tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And finally for us tonight, interesting new numbers show a growing number of Americans are taking their careers overseas. In fact, the new study shows the share of workers leaving the U.S. to work abroad has more than doubled over the past 5 years. The total rose from 2.7% at the end of 2021 to 6% by the end of 2025. The data includes both U.S. and foreign-born workers, along with remote employees and those joining companies based outside the United States. Technology professionals are leading the trend. France, the top destination for Americans choosing to relocate for work. And that is our look at the day here at home. Jesse Thomas is here at 11:30 with your late update. The app and the web have updates anytime. Hope to see you tomorrow. I'm Todd Battis. Until then, have a good night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.